Just combine the words.
Okay.
Which I haven't seen until he took his socks off for the first time in like 6 months.
Oh, he's
No.
got to see someone.
Yeah, we're.
Oh, yeah.
Hold on.
Take a minute.
Got your 4-minute timer up.
Okay. I don't have a gavel, but I have this lotion.
That'll work.
Great. This meeting of the Livingston City Commission is called to order. May we have roll call, please?
Chair Hoagland,
Yes.
Commissioner Schwartz,
Present.
Commissioner Maybe,
Present.
Commissioner Friedman,
Here.
Commissioner Nudes.
Here.
We, next on our agenda, we have public comment. Individuals are reminded that public comments should be limited to items over which the City Commission has supervision, controlled jurisdiction, and advisory power. Any public comment, please state your name and address.
All right, it doesn't look like Patricia has a microphone, so I'm going to chat with her and see if she can read it.
Yeah, she could put in a chat message or something as well. Why don't we move on to the proclamation, and then if we can flip-flop the public comment to the end or after the resolution.
Sounds great.
Okay. So tonight we have one proclamation, and just a little backstory. We have had some hate speech related pamphlets put on vehicles in our community. It was addressed in the newspaper. We had calls from individuals. I called individuals, and last week I requested that we develop a proclamation in response to the pamphlets, and that is why we are partly here tonight. So I am going to start by reading the proclamation. I know this is a little different than we have, but I would love any comments and feedback from the commission after we read the proclamation. Okay, I will start. A proclamation of acceptance and openness among all our citizens. Whereas, are we okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Whereas it is the policy of the City of Livingston to prevent harassment and discrimination based upon race, color, sex, gender identity. This is not the updated one. Sorry. Is that correct, Michael?
The updated one's on the screen, I think.
Identity of expression.
I don't know if you have the latest one.
I knew it wasn't quite right, just as I read it. So let me start over. It is the policy of the City of Livingston to prevent harassment and discrimination based upon race, color, sex, gender identity, sexual orientation, or gender identity expression, sexual orientation, religion, national origin, disability, or housing status. And whereas recently several community members have experienced incidences of racist, anti-Semitic hate speech targeting a specific demographic in our population, and whereas in 2018, the FBI released its hate crime statistics program report, in which it reports receiving 8,496 offenses, a 16-year high according to the report. And whereas the City Commission of the City of Livingston wish to publicly stand in our solidarity with all members of our community in condemning racism, anti-Semitism, and all forms of hate speech, and emphasize our commitment to protecting all citizens and promote respectful discourse in our community. Now, therefore, through our elected members of the City Commission of the City of Livingston, Montana, stands firmly with our community members to reaffirm that all are accepted. And be it further resolved, I, Darrell Hoagland, Chair of the City Commission, do hereby encourage other municipal leaders across our nation to join us to strengthen our fight against racism, anti-Semitism, and all forms of discrimination. So I'm going to actually ask commissioners if they have any comments. Any comments from the commissioners?
Sure.
Okay, go ahead, Melissa.
Darrell, as the chair, I appreciate that you called the meeting and worked with the city to get this done so quickly, and not as quickly as the next day, but I know that that's not really possible with public meetings as quickly as we can move. And I want to thank the city staff that also helped put this together. I think it's a really wonderful time to show how united our branches of government are to support all the people that live in our community.
Any other commissioners?
I want to thank you, Darrell, for putting this together. Very good.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a shame that something like this has to and should be done. And that's, you know, and it certainly should be done. Thank you.
Thanks,
I'm just
Glenn.
glad Commissioner Schwartz, I'm glad we responded as timely as we did. I know Billings has gone through this in the past, and I think actually the newspaper printed up an insert in the papers with a menorah on it, and everybody posted it in their front window showing solidarity. Something might look towards in the future, but hopefully this is the end of that, and be diligent and keep our eyes open. Thank you.
Agreed. I made a couple calls today, just they were all the Jewish friends and or acquaintances in our community, and one of the individuals had just moved to Montana when they had the incidences in Billings, and he was impressed by how Billings at that time had, stood up as a community. And it's a great story. I have the actual book, the children's book of that story as well, and it's a great story to share with kids. But he compared us to them, and that we are standing up as a community and as a entity, a government entity, as a commission against something. And he said how, as a Jew in a minority in Montana, that he was so impressed then how they did it, and he was very happy and thankful that we are standing up as well. And I like I've said, I couldn't have stayed sitting down with this issue. It's so against who I am in our core, and I think in the core of our community, that I think we had to do it, and I wouldn't have done it any other way. So thank you, and thank you, commissioners, for supporting the proclamation. All right, moving on Tonight, we do have one resolution, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Livingston, Montana, approving and adopting FY 2021 marketing plan submitted by the Livingston Business Improvement District, the LBID, Convention and Visitors Bureau, the CVB, as required by law. Mr. Cardus.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this is kind of a last minute addition. We have not done this in the past. So this is new this year. However, it is nice, I think, to see the LBID as a CVB has given us some of the information for this year's marketing. Obviously, they've already made some adjustments for the expected loss of revenue because of downturn in tourism this year due to the COVID-19 issues. I just want to point a couple of those out. It is our budget for this year will be about $17,500. Of which about $3,500 can be used for administrative support. This is over $11,000 decrease from last year, so they're going to have to be very wise and judicious with the use of the funds this year, especially as we use the funds from this year to promote next year. Luckily, the funds for this year are still good through the end of June. Those will continue to be promoted, but this will get challenging next spring as we look to promote the summer of 21 tourist season. So this is the marketing overview. Once this is completed, it will be turned into the state by May 4th. So that'll be before our next meeting. And then they will start the process of working with the Tourism Advisory Council to get that marketing plan approved. And then they'll continue to move through the process from there. So they are well on their way. They're already working with the TAC and the members of the Office of Tourism. So it's a good start, and I think this is a nice touch to be able to see that they're already starting through that process. So I would be happy to answer any questions.
Can I ask a
I'm
question?
sorry. Let me restate that. It muted. If the public needs to type in a question or a comment, it sounds like there may be some sound issues, as well as then we will open it. Let's start by opening it to the commissioners for questions. Melissa, sorry to cut you off, but.
That's okay. I was just going to ask, how is this different than other years? Are you saying that the commission wasn't shown this in previous years, or?
Yeah, in the past years, this hasn't come to you before it's gone to the Office of Tourism. So depending on how you interpret some of the rules, and I think the Office of Tourism is re-looking at some of the rules and how they implement them based off of a legislative review of the CVB process. So this will be the first year that the marketing plans actually come to you before it's gone to the Office of Tourism for approval. And this isn't the full marketing plan, obviously. This is just a general overview of what the intent is. But it's still a new step in that you get to see it before it goes up to the state.
Was there any prediction as far as the percentage of drop of tourism?
There was, I don't know if they gave us the exact number of percentages, but it's down. Let me see if I can do public math. This is always dangerous. It's down to 17,500 from, I think, 29,000. So that's a drop of 11,500 out of 29,000. That's about a 40% decrease.
Thank you.
So can you explain the drop? I mean, obviously the recent events with COVID would impact, but that seems like a pretty big drop for that short a time. What is the difference in?
Sure. So this this particular drop is for all of basically fiscal year 21, or it'll be from the 1st of July through the 30th of June 2021. So it's just their predictions for how much they think they're going to lose over an entire year starting in July. And obviously the last half, July, August, September, is going to be greatly reduced. compared to most years.
All right, that makes sense. Any other questions? Comments? Okay. All right, do we have a motion on resolution number 4896?
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 4896 or resolution 4896.
Second, Commissioner Friedman.
We have a motion by Schwartz and a second by Friedman. Roll call, please.
Chair Hoagland,
Yes?
Commissioner Schwartz,
4.
Commissioner Friedman,
4.
Commissioner Maybe. Commissioner Maybe,
He's unmuted. Give me a second.
Yes,
Commissioner Nudes.
Yes.
Motion passes. Then moving on, we have, well, public comment, if there is any public comment.
So we're still trying to help Patricia get in to be able to make her comments. While we're doing that, I can give you a quick city manager update. And then hopefully she's in and she can give you any public comment before you get to city commissioner updates, if that's okay.
Well, I see there's a comment from her. If we can,
is it possible her computer is muted?
yes, possibly. Patricia, if you're in the meeting,
I'm
then
looking
you're,
at it, so
if you can hear, or you can hear us and see us. If you can't, or if you can see us, then you're in the meeting. So there has to be another route for you to get the sound.
And if you're trying to dial in with the meeting ID number, Patricia, change the last digit from 4 to 7 and see if that helps.
Is your, Michael, was the number you just said also, does that match up with what you typed earlier, or do you need to type a new number for her in case she can't hear? Oh, it looks like Faith did it. Never mind.
Faith's always faster than I am, so. That should allow her to call in, hopefully, if her computer audio is not working.
Can you give us the call in so the public can have it?
Sure. The call-in number, let me see if I can pull it up.
600,
It,
600,
oh, you're gonna have to say that again. So the,
900.
she's gonna type it in the chat and then I'm gonna read it out. So if you're listening, you can still hear it. It's 669-900-6833.
Okay, we'll give that a second.
Oh, I thought
Michael,
it was in here.
as we're waiting for public comment or call in, is there any other way for, if the public's not in the Zoom, is there any way for us to publish that or post it to call in at this time on the website? Or is it too late?
We can put it out there live. Well, I don't know if we can change it right now, but we can attempt to do so. All right. I think that's Patricia calling in, so hopefully she can talk in just a second.
She's on mute.
Is that your number, Patricia? Did you get in?
I did. I
Okay.
did. Do I have to push the number to have you hear me?
No, we can hear you.
We can hear you.
Okay.
So
You
Patricia,
published the wrong number
we
in the
shifted,
paper.
Patricia, we shifted public comment so that you could get in, and we've shared the phone number for call-in. So if you want to have public comment on the resolution, we already voted on it, but you are welcome to have your public comment or your basic public comment as well. So go ahead.
Is that on both the proclamation and the resolution?
Yep, anything.
Yeah, anything. You have time.
Okay. I want to make a quick comment on the proclamation because the emphasis on the proclamation, while I completely agree with the proclamation, as a single parent and as the daughter of a single parent, I feel that there's been a significant amount of discrimination against single females by the city of Livingston and in the city of Livingston, but particularly by the city commission and the city manager. So I want to add that concern that I have regarding discrimination. It's been a long, hard fight for females and single females to be considered full citizens of this country. My mother went through a lot as a single mother in the 50s and the 60s, raising 4 children. And having been involved in the feminist movement early on and still involved in the feminist movement, I have great empathy for the role of the single female in this country. And frankly, I am tired of having that kind of discrimination occur, and particularly in a government process, and particularly in Livingston, Montana. And I really need to make that statement because we have a single female who's has had hate mail sent, has had anonymous letters sent, and it is okay for people to accept that in this community, and I don't accept it. I think we should look carefully into kind of anonymous letters that have gone out, the discriminations taken place. That's my statement on the proclamation. I laud you.
Patricia, can you wait one second?
Passing the proclamation, but I want to emphasize this other aspect of discrimination. It's been a battle for me and my family.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Patricia? Okay, maybe you and I will have to talk at one point. We could have a one-on-one call on what you are talking about as far as, and also accusing this commission of discriminating against women, because that's a little different than how I usually play or roll. So I'd love to have a convo. We'll move on to the resolution. So we'll start the timer over for your resolution
Okay.
public comment.
Okay, and again, though I like the commissioners very much and I like the city manager, I feel as a person who helped create the Livingston Business Improvement District, first of all, the bylaws are incorrectly posted from the meeting that you have. I want you to please take a serious look at that. When the LBID was created, it was a really difficult thing to get enough votes to pass the LBID. And I think that the LBID is an inappropriate body to house the CVB because, first of all, the city has made a decision in its strategic plan not to include the words economic health for this community. And at the meeting, the audio meeting on Monday, it was announced that half of the service jobs are now gone due to this pandemic, and yet the city has taken no role in specifically in its strategic plan to include economic health, to have any kind of empathy towards these service jobs that are gone, and the city has refused to take any kind of role in encouraging tourism in Livingston. So when we passed the CVB, or we passed the LBID, we didn't have enough votes, so we gerrymandered. And if you look at the map, the Graybo was left out because originally they thought I wasn't going to vote for the LBID. And then Dan Call encouraged me, and I decided to support it. And we had a meeting over at Northern Pacific Beanery as president of the Downtown Building Owner and Business Association. And I then supported the LBID, but they never changed the map. So the Graybo is not included in the map for the LBID, but I have paid for the last 9 years into the LBID. I know that there was a violation of the LBID bylaws in terms of not allowing those of us who have paid taxes on this for 9 years to even know about any bylaw changes that would allow us to do this CVB. The other thing I really need to say is that I grew up in Montana. A couple of values are really important to me. One is you don't lie, and the other is you don't steal. And I feel like the taking of the CVB from the Chamber of Commerce after all the work they put into it is, to me, is a form of theft. And I do not appreciate the fact that this is moving forward when the LBID is simply an inappropriate body to house this CVB, to go ahead and write a business plan that LBID goes up for renewal next year. How can we possibly put this before the city commission when we know that it may or may not exist in a year? It's up to us who pay that tax, and those of us who will decide whether or not we renew this. And there's very likely that we won't, because none of us, so many of them, business building owners I've talked to, and I've been involved as president of the Downtown Building Owner and Business Association for 13 years. I know them well, and they're very unhappy with being taxed to support the CVB. And that's my comment on it. I think this is a sham.
Okay, thank you. So we'll move on to city manager comments. Michael, any comments tonight?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, just one. I want to give you an update on the new loan program that the revolving loan fund has initiated. We talked about it a few times. I just wanted to give you some stats. They are having their first committee meeting tomorrow to see if they can start approving some of the loans that have been applied for. Right now, there's 20 total loans that have been applied for. Of those, 12 are businesses within the city. And there's another 13 that are in the process of applying. And out of those, 10 are in the city. So if all those applications go through, there'll be 22 applications of city businesses for some kind of assistance through the revolving loan fund. So that's a pretty good news story, and hopefully we'll be able to continue that and get them the help they need as we go forward.
Michael, can I ask, so the entities outside or businesses outside of the city, are they all over the county?
They are. So that can be anywhere outside the county. The city and the county funds are separate. We treat them the same, but they are a separate pool of funds. So there's a different amount of money available depending on whether you're in the city or the county. But in general, yes, I think businesses from all over the county have been applying, at least for the loans through the county portion.
Would you say that over, because I lost you?
I'll give you the short version. Yes, it is businesses from all over the county. It is separate from the city program, but they are eligible. There's just a different amount of money depending if you're a city or a county business. But they are both, they're from pretty much anywhere inside of Park County.
Okay, great.
Hey, Darrell, can I also ask what total, what's the dollar amount we have to work with out of this fund?
I think the total between city and county is about $750,000. They obviously aren't looking to loan that entire amount out, but I know they are starting with an initial amount, and then there's possibly some federal programs that they can tap into to get some more funds available for loans. So
Okay.
they are researching that as well.
All right, thank you.
And can I ask, what is the rate for the loans?
I think it's 3.2 or 3.5%. I forget which one, but it's in the low threes.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from the update? Related to the update? Go ahead, Melissa.
So you said that's 22 city businesses out of how many total loans have been granted?
Out of a total of 33 once all the applications are completed.
And just a reminder of, can you just remind everyone who makes the decisions about those funds, what the name of that group is?
Sure, it's the Park County Development Corporation. So that was created, Katie Weaver's on it, as well as Joe Hanser and I forget who it is from the title company, but there's an entire board that sits down and reviews these processes, and they are our experts that we have chosen to manage this for us, and they have done a great job in being responsive to this particular situation and coming up with some new rules and being willing to take a little more risk than you usually would with these kind of funds because of the situation, but doing it in a very responsible manner so that we can maintain this as a resource for the community.
And do you know how many businesses or business owners have applied?
Right now, it's just those 33 if you count the county.
So everyone that's applied has been granted some sort of assistance?
They actually haven't awarded anything yet. They'll start that process tomorrow. There's 20 applications that are completed, and there's 13 more that are in the process, and they'll start the approval process tomorrow when they have their first meeting.
Thank you.
Is the maximum loan 10,000?
That's correct. Yeah, up to $10,000.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else, Michael?
Nothing else for me. Just after your commissioner comments, if you want to have a short conversation about how you would like to do the next meeting, if you want to do one more by Zoom or if you're ready to start doing them in person, that's really the next question that we have to decide.
Okay, let's do city commissioner comments and then decide on our next meeting. Any commissioner comments?
Well, in terms of the proclamation in that particular event, I would like to think that it's not a local individual. Livingston has been not that way since I've been here in terms of discrimination. And this is the first, in 13 years, this is the first time I've heard of something like this happening or even borderline happening. So I'm also hoping that this is an isolated event. It should not be ignored, but it's a one-off type thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Warren. Melissa?
In the interest of being accurate when we talk about what's happening with our businesses, I think this is like a really important time to make sure we're talking about things based on data and correct information. So I really want to ask some clarifying questions about the LBID. And I'm hoping, Michael, I know you're not prepared to answer these. You don't have my list of questions before the meeting starts. So can you share what the mechanism is for the LBID existing, this insinuation that it's gonna like not exist next year?
Sure, the LBID, like the TBID or really even the CVB, although we didn't put an expiration date on that, is created underneath the auspices of the city. All of them required a city resolution to start. In this case, for the LBID, the portion of state code that falls under, there was a time limit when we passed it, so they will have to come back up for reapproval by the district itself. it requires a 60% approval rate within the district to continue.
And when does that happen?
I think the district itself goes through 21 or 22. I forget which one. But we'll be looking in the next year or two at putting it back out to the members of the BID to renew themselves.
Could you also clarify about the Graybo building on the map? It's my understanding that it was on the map currently.
So it is within the district, and it is currently paying the additional BID property taxes. The original map was not accurate. We're still trying to get that fixed with GIS, but who is within the district or not within the district isn't determined by the map. That's just a reflection of what's in the recorder's office. So we just need to make sure the two match.
Thank you. And then I believe that the strategic plan meetings weren't even finalized when COVID came knocking. So that was all put on pause and we went to essential functions, like the most basic functions of the commission at that point. So that conversation, I don't feel like for this year has ended regarding what the city or the commissioners do for the local economy. But I know there's been at least a couple of things that we've done since I've been a commissioner that has been supportive of both tourism and the local businesses. I wanted to give you a chance, Michael, if you have a list, because I think we have been supportive. The revolving loan fund is one example during this crisis. And another is we did vote to approve the TBID, which is absolutely 100% tourism. So I'm sure you have others to add, and I would just like a chance to share that and revisit it.
Sure, and it's going to be a mental list, so I'm sure there's going to be things that I forget, but I think the revolving loan fund in its inception in the first place was a big one, and now revamping it to help the small businesses through this crisis is another way that I think we're being very responsive to the businesses downtown. Just support of the BID in general, really the design, the money that we've put into the downtown as far as new sidewalks, new streets, a lot of that was done with an eye towards making it appealing to tourists, whether that's the historical lampposts, the 12-foot wide sidewalks, increasing it or bringing it up to ADA standards. All of those things have been done with an eye towards the city's role in helping tourism, which is more infrastructure and making sure that the basic environment exists for our businesses to be successful. I think you can include things supporting of chamber events as far as waiving fees for things like the car show and the parade. Providing services for all of those issues is another way that we support both the businesses and tourism. I think our involvement and our support of the Small Business Revolution is another example of ways we try to support the local businesses, even if it's just through promoting those kind of things through our Facebook account or helping facilitate meetings when people come to town. I'm sure there's a lot more examples. I just can't think of them off the top of my head, but I think we are consistently attempting to do what we can to help our local businesses, and that includes, helping the tourist trade.
Thanks. I just think it's really important. We have such limitations on finances and our ability to maneuver because we're government, we're not private. And so I just think it's really important to be accurate and reflect what is happening at the commission as it pertains to businesses, because this is a time our community really, really needs to come together. And it's only going to get probably more unpredictable before it's predictable. And so I think it's important to have accurate information out there. Thank you. And I said everything else I wanted to say about the proclamation already, so I yield, and thanks again.
Thank you, Melissa. Mel?
I'm okay.
All right, Quentin?
I'd just like to give a shout out to all the employees of the city and county and the leadership of both entities for being really mindful of this time and in working with the governor and stuff like that. Keep up the good work. That's about all I have.
Thank you, Quentin. Yes, I'd like to thank the community as well, with the schools and the county, the city, the businesses all working together. I mean, I've been in meetings where there are, you know, the hospital has 3 people and the city has 1 and the county has 2. And then, you know, I mean, you could go on and there's multiple people trying to pull together in these very tough times. And now with things opening up, we'll see how it all plays out. But I still see people intentionally working together, and I appreciate that. I think more the merrier when it comes to dealing with big problems. Other than that, I'd like to thank everyone again for supporting the proclamation and the importance of us standing up to hate and misinformation. And I look forward to that not happening again. No, I mean, standing up will happen, but the flyers hopefully will not.
Yeah.
So moving on to, I guess, closing the meeting. We are done with our agenda. We will, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to discuss how we will meet the next city commission meeting, which is on the 5th. Is that correct?
That is, so it's only a week away.
And I mean, CDC recommendations, as well as community and state, is continuing with social distancing and with masks, gloves in settings, certain settings, in most settings. I just heard today that they're going to look at that in Bozeman with some of the biggest stores will now require masks for entering because things are opening up. How do we want to move forward to our next or as far as our next meeting? Continue with the Zoom platform or moving to opening it? I have my opinions, but I'd love to hear from others.
Well, can we hear your opinion first? Or you want my opinion first?
I'm leery. I think because of our setting, I feel like that room probably it doesn't have great airflow that I know of. I'm leery of our setting without masks, and we'd have to require masks. And I feel we're still at the phases and transitioning to things opening up, and it's a slow process. So I'm a little leery of having a live meeting.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that, and especially from a public standpoint. How do we pick and choose who's allowed to attend the meeting? You know, and like you said, our space isn't that great, and our attendance from the public isn't that great. But in any event, I kind of think about that probably more than anything. I'd be comfortable putting off that. Having an in-person meeting till the 19th, which would be our next in May. You know, and maybe we can revisit it, you know, at our May 5th meeting. But I'm with you on this, Darrell. I'd rather throw caution to the wind at this point.
Melissa, go ahead.
I'm always thinking about like I'm trying to remember first the difference between phase 1 and phase 2. I think phase 1 said that if you are an at-risk part of the population, that the recommendation was still to lay low. Is that a thumbs up that I'm remembering correctly? I'm getting a nod from Mr. Cardus. So I'm always thinking about, I guess, who's the most at risk. And I feel like with our commission and the folks that regularly come to our commission meeting, we probably have some people that might be in the at-risk category. I don't want to assume, but I think that's probably the case. And I don't want to discourage attendance. The other thing is if we are in a public meeting and we're all wearing masks, I think that's going to make it harder for folks that are videoing in or people that rely on facial cues to hear, if their hearing is at all impaired. And I know that sounds trite or insignificant potentially, but I think it could be a challenge when we can all see each other here and have non-distorted audio. So I'm inclined to be more cautious to protect those of us that are most at risk in the commission and in the public. That's just my initial thought.
I'm going to jump off of those two comments as well, Melissa and Quentin, is that I think this week, kind of reflecting on safety and continuing with the online Zoom platform seems logical at keeping our community safe and our staff. And then talking about it again at our next commission meeting and seeing where the recommendations are with the CDC, the state, and the county/city.
Yeah, Darrell? I just had a phone call from a barber, and I have an appointment for next week. Now, in a barber shop, they can control the door being locked and just one person in there being serviced, and a lot easier to control that situation than we would have. And I think they're being very cautious about it, but they can handle it very well the way I understand it's going to work out. And we are not, it's harder for us to control it at the commission level, a meeting, than a business would have. So I'm looking forward to next week for that appointment. And, but she assured me that they've been well thought out and there's a lot of precaution involved. So we'd be in a different situation.
Okay, Warren, do you have anything you want to share, or should we finish up?
Well, I'd like to get to having our regular meetings as soon as possible. I don't think the sake of 2 weeks, I'd also definitely defer to any medical opinion or expert opinion versus my wishes. But I think for the sake of an additional 2 weeks, I'd rather err in the direction of safety. I would like to get back to our regular meeting format though as soon as possible. The 5th might not be it. Thank you.
Okay, so it sounds like we're willing to, Michael, continue with Zoom for the next meeting and then reconsider, and then we'll have 2 more weeks beyond that of time, or so, well, slightly less, and that we can potentially come up with a better protocols and a different approach to dealing with meetings in the space that we do have, unless you have some thoughts on it.
No, I think that's appropriate. We'll have another week before the next meeting, and then probably another week before we need to make a real decision for the meeting after that. We probably won't be to phase 2 yet. Phase 1, we're pretty much limited to 10, groups of 10, unless you can maintain social distancing, which isn't that easy to do in the community room. So we'll be limited by that in the near future. That'll give us some time to see if we can figure out how to do a hybrid meeting. There's some technological challenges to being able to do partially live and partially online, but we haven't been able to use the community room up to this point because the Emergency Operations Center has been stood up in there. I think they are going to be finishing up in the next week or so. So that'll give us some time to get in there and see if we can figure out some of the technological challenges.
All right, thank you. And the other issue is just with us and the required staff for a meeting, we have a minimum of 8 people. So that prevents many people from the public attending.
Yeah.
All right, so next week we will continue using the Zoom platform for the meeting and then rethink, revisit, and go from there. All right. So it's time for adjournment. Do I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
All in
Second.
favor?
Yes.
All in favor? Aye. This meeting of the Livingston City Commission is adjourned at 6:21 p.m.
All right, if you'll stand by one moment, commissioners, we'll set up for the closed portion, the closed session on the legal update. So hold on one moment.
So Michael, will sign back in, or do you want us to stay on?
No, you can just stay on. I'm just going to stop the recording.